So we're here at Macedon Public Library just talking about American Creed, which we just watched, and I am turning the discussion over to Dr. Richard Newman.
Well, I'm going to turn it back to you first and ask you to repeat what you had just said about why you thought the American Creed was an important documentary and opportunity for the library and the community here.
Okay, sure. I'll have Carol, if you want to just turn it around so you can see me in the screen. So what I was saying before I realized I wasn't recording is that I thought it was a great opportunity because when I go out into the world, I work in Macedon, I live in Geneva, of course I do various sorts of social media, and I see polarization everywhere I go. So when I heard about this grant opportunity, I thought, hey, this is a great way for people to finally be able to talk to one another, because I feel like there's this sense of being afraid to talk to each other because instead of being able to talk, we vilify one another, and I don't think that's healthy for the country. So I thought this was just a great opportunity. Does anybody else want to talk? I'll turn it back over.
Well, let's get each of you to introduce yourself and just say what you thought of the documentary and why it might be a powerful way to stimulate community conversation.
My name is Thomas. I've lived in Macedon for about 10, 15 years now. My family grew up here. I just noticed that over the years there's been a lot of change in like the American lifestyles of people. Take like your point, like people have lived in this town for many, many years, and I don't really even know half the people who live in this town, and it's not a very big town. A lot of people like to keep to themselves around here, and a lot of them work out of town, so they'll work during the days and they'll come back to town. So like I live over here on Crest Avenue. I know all the people on that road. Everybody knows each other, so I know we all get along, everyone has good. But if you were to ask me about the next road over, I would have no idea. Because it never concerned me who lived over. It never concerned me who lived in town, who lived in the outskirts of town, who lived in the city, because it's all different kinds of things, but I never felt like it was, I never felt interested in getting to know anybody like that. I was in my own little clique, and I think that's one of the things about, as Americans, when we don't really have that solidarity anymore like we used to have back in the 50s. If you look at Rochester from after the war, it was like a huge economical thing. Now you had Kodak down there, you had Xerox right down there. All them houses down there on Clay Avenue and Avenue D were all built for the soldiers coming back from war who would work for Kodak. If you were to go down there today, you would just think you were in some third world country. Half the houses are zombie, the streets are tore up, there's no work, there's no nothing. Well, we always hear on the news about how the economy's getting better, but no, I never see it. I never see the economy getting better. You can say anything you want to say about the economy getting better, but can you show me where it's getting better?
So what's the major lesson you took away from the documentary?
Actually, I feel a lot more seeing how other people had to come to this country and what they had to do to get here. I was born here, so I really never had understood, the way that these people, immigrants came. My parents were immigrants. I'm 16% Seneca Indian, but I really don't know nothing about the Seneca Indians, so I don't know. But I see that being American, we always say we have to be tolerant of this and tolerant of that, and and we got all the different cultures here. So there's always going to be some sort of like abrasiveness going on, because if we don't understand the education, you don't get to know these other cultures and know these other people, then how are you going to be able to even understand how they live? So I think it's like they always said, like when I was in high school, the melting pot. That's what they called it, the melting pot of America, with all different nationalities and everybody gets together. I think people should probably get to know other people. I don't know any Muslims. I would like to know some Muslims, but it's kind of frowned upon. And I don't, you know, not all Muslims are bad, but still, it's like, I don't feel good about it, but, you know, I get
Well, that's the stereotype that's
the
operating
stereotype
right
that's
now.
operating right now. It's weird. You know, if I saw somebody like at Walmart or something, you know, I wouldn't go out of my way not to say hi to them or anything, but I don't understand what, you know, I get this feeling that we're not supposed to. You know, it's like, you see everything on the news, you gotta watch your back, you gotta watch everybody what they're doing, you know, if you see something, say something. And I think it's like we just don't have that solidarity as a people.
So it sounds like one of the takeaways you have from this video is that conversation, getting to know people, breaking through stereotypes is the most important thing.
I think the way you feel is how would you go, you gotta figure out a way to go about breaking that ice. I mean, once you start, you know, talking to people and seeing these people, it gets easier. But how do you go about getting that community feeling going where it's like, hey, you know, welcome these people into our community?
I think that's interesting because before I had seen this documentary, and I had prepared for this and I've seen snippets of it, I thought it was going to be a little more of a lesson plan. This is what American ideals are. This is what the American creed is. It's about equality, justice, a lot of slogans. But what this really was about was conversations. I think in many ways the better title for the documentary would have been American Conversation, where you start in the classroom and people get around the table and they talk to one another about their backgrounds and their goals and their concerns and their fears and their hopes and their dreams. And they'll see that that connects them to people in the past, the present, and the future. And then you start to flesh out what the creed is. Is it tolerance? Is it opportunity? Is it pragmatic problem solving? And I think you're putting your finger on that. That a lot of this starts from the conversations we'll have in our own community around the table. And for me, the most powerful part of, one of the most powerful parts of the whole documentary was the conversation between the MoveOn.org person and the figure from the Tea Party Patriots, because they had to break down those really formidable stereotypes. What do liberals eat, right? Yeah. Aren't conservatives all rabidly patriotic? And they just had a conversation in the living room. You bring a friend, I'll bring a friend, and we'll talk. And they found out that they had a lot of common ground, but more importantly, they got beyond the stereotypes. And so I'm thinking maybe one of the things that a library can do is serve as the equivalent of a living room. Have library conversations. Everyone brings a friend and a dish to pass, and you have a sign-up sheet, and you try to get just 8 people or 6 people or a small number like that, and you say, let's just talk for an hour. You can show snippets of this, but that might be a way to just create some of these conversations. So I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, thanks for that idea.
Yeah, well, I think it flows right from the American creed.
And it ties into something. I think it was the woman was from Move On, right? And I think she said too that it was different because there was a human being sitting across the table from her, and I think that there's too many people using technology, and I'm not anti-technology, but when it's always like you're online and you're talking to people, but it doesn't feel like you're talking to people anymore, and it's just a different dynamic. And being at a table, breaking bread, and knowing that that person you're talking to is sitting right in front of you, and they are breathing and feeling and emoting on their face, and it's just a whole different ball of wax than the digital stuff.
Yeah, I have a rule in my classroom where I don't prohibit or prevent them from using technology, but at key moments I'll say technology down, cell phones, computers, iPads, let's just talk. Let's talk about a document, let's talk about a moment that we saw in a video, let's talk to each other, and then you can go back to using your technology. And I think we need those kinds of moments in American culture. Let's put the technology down. It's a tool that's powerful and usable and transformative, but if we put technology down for an hour, hour and a half, we will listen to each other and break through the stereotypes. And I think an institution like a library can help facilitate those conversations because they're not happening in other parts of the community.
Right.
Let's come over here and introduce yourself, and what did you take away from the documentary?
Well, basically, I've lived in this community 50 years.
And your name is?
I'm Carolyn Lane Dice, and I've experienced many different experiences throughout this community and before. And I think it's all on how you perceive life. And I've learned my perceptions through 3 years in Europe, living there. And my husband was associated with the Army. And I've met people from all different places. And we had a lot of good times together. We shared together. I made up my mind several years ago after having been president of Churchwood United in New York State for several years. I met many different people, different ways of perceiving things, even the churches. There were 26 different churches. And they perceived differently, believe it or not, from each church, even though they had a common ground Christian background. So I learned how to speak many languages. And that was a real power in my personal life. And the more I thought about that as I grew older and challenged some of the other things I was seeing around me, especially in the news, I thought we need more community. So I got out there and worked with that, like tonight, in many different ways. And we are members of a little bookstore, and we could bring this back over into the library too. We talk. We love the conversation. My husband, who really didn't care about going to church, loves to sit around in a circle of people. Diversification is the name of the game there. And we discuss anything and everything. And we love it. And I've seen this American Creed twice. And I was very excited when Stacy decided we would have this right here. I think we should think about having a little lunch, whatever, dish to pass you mentioned. We should think more about that. I thought during the program something about both the Republican and Democratic and the other parties that are connected here now. In Macedon, I wondered if they would come to such a conversation. But it only starts with 2, with 4. You start everything small. It's not all a big story. It's the everyday story. We told our children, and we have 7 boys, and we told our children, we go visit and you're on your cell phone all the time. How about some conversation? And now when we go, we all sit around the table and we talk. And everyone doesn't believe the same way, but that's what they're talking about in this American Creed, is to really value who you are, where you came from, and where you're going to go, and how you want to do all of this, one step at a time. I was sad to see that some of the African-American children, young people there, were saying, we haven't gone anywhere. That's not true. That's not true at all. Because every group has extended in some way the value system of that group. And they are also responsible for what they are doing right now. And if you go back to family and generate that love and conditioning of the spirit and all that comes from family, you can go out with that and share that in so many different ways. But you have to make that choice. And if you only choose to listen to the news every night or on your radio all the time and listen to their perception of what is going on in the world, then you're going to stay right there. So you need to go back to community. And some of the churches are going downhill, but sports has taken over. And they have community in the sports world. I think we've forgotten that. That's happening out there. When one is disappearing, the other is coming up. And we will always have community at some level or another. We just have to remember that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because the documentary starts off with Joe Madden, who's was the manager until very recently of the Chicago Cubs, and he talked about the power of sports to build community, the ability of sports to cross barriers of ethnicity, race, class, and I think you're putting your finger on that. You also put your finger on institutions. You are someone who has grown up in a community of institutions, school, religious institutions. You're clearly a proud member of the library as not only a community but an institution. And the question is, how do we revivify those institutions so younger people say, this is an important part of the community, this is where families can come and have these discussions about American identity, the American creed, how to improve communities, how to help families survive. I think you have really important life experiences that people need to hear. And so one of the visions I have in my head is putting you into one of these small little living room conversations with someone from a local high school who thinks that technology is the only way of the future. You know, just to let you talk for half an hour about your life experiences and to listen to this person talk about their hopes and dreams. I think that would be really powerful.
I'm smiling, I'm seeing my grandson. Oh, Grandma, we don't use that word anymore. I said, why don't we use that word? You know, and we have quite the conversations all the time. And he is a senior in high school right now.
Yes.
Yes.
And he's going into a very different world than you are, where the institutions that you helped build and in a way took for granted are now being sort of, if not torn down, at least reduced in power. And this is what you were talking about. That's something that saps a community's spirit. But maybe there's other ways to talk about institution building, community, family.
I'll tell you one way.
Yeah.
My husband walked our grandson down the driveway, a long driveway in the cold too, every morning. Grandson came up for breakfast because I didn't want him to have to go on 2 different buses when he was that high. And so, okay, we'll take him for breakfast. So he came up and had breakfast with us. And every morning, my husband would walk him down to the bus. And they had the best conversations.
That's great.
And today they are so beautifully close. And they talk about everything. And his family is important. It's the crux of it all. It's a family. And sometimes a family isn't a mother and a father and 2 children. But sometimes it's an extended community. And we need more of that. We do. We do. And I think there's more than we know out there.
I think you're right.
I think we're focusing upon the negative. We should be looking more at the positive. We went into Walmart the other day, and we wanted to get some turkey and ham and cheese and things for a presentation we were going to do. And the lady there waited on us, and she could have said it like that and not paid any attention. She was lovely. She said, well, what are you going to do? And I'll cut these things just right for you. And she really took the time to care about community. She spoke to us in a valuable way. We answered her in the same way. And I said to my husband when we left, that was nice. They ought to give her a raise. Really. So we need to be appreciative of what we already have. And if you choose to just focus on the negative, that's what you're going to find. So that's my...
Well, I think you're both putting your finger on something that's been lost, you know, not just community and family, but an optimistic spirit, which would kind of define how you go into the future. We can solve problems, we can achieve great things, and it seems like a lot of that spirit has been knocked to the side. And I think the person in the Marines spoke powerfully to that,
Yes.
right? When you're in the Marines, you don't have time to waste time. You're solving practical problems, but you also think like you're stitching together this common fabric. You're allowing other people to enjoy their liberties. And I thought it was really refreshing to hear her talk in that way. You know, it's not just that I'm sacrificing my life, why are you wasting your life on protest? It's, I see the relationship. I do things that allow you to do things, and this is technically or theoretically what the American dream is supposed to be about. So I think both of you have put your fingers on a sense of lost optimism and the need to kind of recover that. But I'll ask the other side of this, and maybe we can close on this. you might say that the American creed is one side of a coin and the other side is the American dilemma. What happens when people legitimately complain or point to problems in American society? For the folks in Arkansas who come from a dispossessed background, 60 to 80% of the population, but they own less than 1% of the jobs there. Is it enough to just listen? Can we take away from people that we actually are very different from? Can we say, I heard you, and I think your story is an important part of moving forward? In other words, we don't always have to say, if we just believe in good things will happen. Can we say, yes, you are right. There are really powerful problems, and we have to work harder to listen to each other so that we confront those problems fully. Maybe if each of you could talk about that, that'd be a good way to end, because to me, I think that's one of the great powers of the American creed, is the ability to say, there's a lot of problems that we have to confront, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. And a great nation, I've always thought, has the ability to look at itself honestly and say, we have some problems.
I always felt like people shouldn't be afraid of their government. Governments should be afraid of their people. I mean, I'm saying that we need to learn to use our rights and better, how to stand up for what we're supposed to be getting in this great country of ours.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it just comes down to like the opportunities that are available to everyone in this country. They're just not available to everyone. They say everybody has that opportunity to go to school and get a good education. That's really not true. Some schools just can't handle the amount of students that they have in the schools. When I was in school, I had a lot of friends that just were passed to the next grade. They shouldn't have been passed to the next grade because they were like, it's time to move on. I had a friend in high school that was in 10th grade, he couldn't read. Yeah, he went from 9th grade to the 10th grade. How do you do that? How do you go from kindergarten to the 1st grade if you can't read? I just didn't understand it. I just feel like we need to try to do what we can is to take advantage of the things that we're supposed to be getting in this country. You know, we're getting education, healthcare. You're supposed to be getting. Every year you hear the same thing. Every 4 years, every new president, every new Senate coming in. Education, healthcare, and jobs. Education, healthcare, and jobs. And it's just the same story. It's been going on since the birth of our country, actually. I just don't feel like we're getting everything an American person should get. It's like, I'm not one for entitlements. I think if you put the work in, you should be able to, I'm on unemployment right now. I worked my whole life, and I'm still looking for a job right now. I mean, I'm educated and everything, and I'm collecting unemployment. And sometimes I feel like people look at that as a crutch. But they don't look at me like the last 30 years before I went on unemployment, I just feel like it's not like it was like what I was talking about earlier. In the 50s, there was a chicken in every pot, a car in every garage. People worked for companies. You would get a pension, you would get health insurance, you would get all these perks when you worked hard for that company. That was the company you worked for, so you were dedicated to that company. I don't see that in companies in America anymore. I don't know if anybody really gets a pension anymore, or who's going to get when you retire, if you're going to continue to get your health care. It's just, I don't know, it's just a big mess as far as I'm concerned with. I mean, even if you look at Canada, they have health care, universal health care. But like if you needed to go and have a test done at a hospital, you're going to wait a while because that hospital only has one machine in the whole city. it's just like, I don't know, it's just a,
Yeah.
what do you do? I mean, how do you function in America today if you don't understand what you're supposed to be getting or doing to function in America?
Well, this is where I think young voices are very important, because they're saying some of the things that you're saying about the job market has changed, companies have changed, benefits have changed. There's certain opportunities associated with that. But it'd be very interesting maybe to have that dialogue with some younger folks who are going into the workforce and can talk about maybe some of the structural changes that they would encourage local communities, state government, the federal government to make. So I think that's an important perspective.
Yeah, so there's a question I would ask myself, and I have, what can I do to truly make a difference in this community? Even if it's small, what can I do? What can we do? And we decided, just a few weeks ago, we were going to put a bench by our woods. We have, I said before, 7 sons, and our son Johnny passed over running track at Victor High School in 1981. He had a heart attack. And so many times I see the young people running past the house. And one morning I wanted to do something I have wanted to for years. But what can I do that'll truly make a difference here? Right here in our Paradise Acres, where we live, and in our community. And my husband made a beautiful bench. We came to the library, used the glow forge, and made a little sign for it, said Johnny's bench. We put his picture, a joyful one, not the perfect one, the one that's joyful and fun, and we put a sign with it that said, please take a while just to sit down and relax on this healing bench. And please do that. And we cut the grass around back into the woods a little. Please, just try to do that. And you're welcome to. And we've had so many phone calls now, and his old friends are hearing it from someone else. And just people are going so fast. They're going so fast. And perhaps if they just take a few minutes just to relax there, that will make a difference, not only in our lives, but in the lives of others.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Thanks for sharing that.
It's very powerful to me too, and I feel that deeply in my spirit, that it's only just the beginning of enriched life for all of us and our family.
Well, I think you bring us back to this idea of not only slowing down and thinking about community, but having conversations, because in this case, the spirit of your son is speaking to the people who
That's
stop
right.
and sit at the bench.
But there's a notebook there.
Yeah.
It said, please leave a little message if you
That's
would
great.
like to.
It's great.
There's a little, we bought a little post box. It said post on it, and with the notebook.
So,
we
yeah, the
always
lesson
said
once again is to have
celebrating-
conversations.
Yes, celebrating Johnny's life. And if we can learn more to celebrate the little things in our life, the large things will be taken care of.
That's great. That's a great vignette to end on. Thank you. I think that's good.
Okay, well, thank
Thanks.
you for helping us to facilitate this conversation. And
Absolutely.
thanks to everyone who's been watching.
Great.
Hopefully, we'll have another screening with some food. I like that idea, so stay tuned for a date on that, and we'll hopefully have more people join. Good night.